Hello, good evening. We're going to give a couple of minutes. We're having some technical difficulties with letting our our feature speaker show her face, but don't worry, she can show her slides.
Most importantly, I can show my
Wait,
slides.
I think I'm getting a notification now. Let me see if I could turn this on for you.
Here we go.
All right, we're going to give one more minute. See a bunch of people coming in. I'm pretty sure people logged in at 6:59 and didn't see us here. I'm like, what's going on?
I know that's okay. It happens.
All right.
Oh, I like your questions.
We're getting we're gonna try to take advantage of this opportunity here, right? A little interaction.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. All right. I think we'll get started. I'm gonna do some quick introductions here. Thank you so much for joining us on this Tuesday, Wednesday. What day is it? Today is
Tuesday.
yeah, Tuesday. It's March. The weather has been crazy. I don't know where you are, but it's been cold, it's been hot. Um, My name is Gisela Delgado. I am the creative and brand director for the IgA Nephropathy Foundation. I am also an IgA nephropathy patient. This spring will make 30 years since my diagnosis with IgAN. So it's something that you can live with. Um, Part of the foundation, we want to make sure that we are bringing resources to the community. We know that nutrition and also just as a trying to follow your diet can be very complicated with kidney disease. So we put together this webinar with our good friend Lauren here, and we're going to go through protein needs and IgAN. We do have a Q&A section open. Feel free to drop some questions in there. But I did want to start with just two quick reminders. One is that Spark registration is currently open. If you have never been to Spark, it's a great event. It is the only event dedicated to the IgA nephropathy patient and caregiver community. It is a 2-day conference, non-conference. It's a great networking opportunity. We do have patient aid for you to go. The website for that, I'll drop it in the chat. And it is going to be iganspark.org. It is July in Austin. We really want to try to break our record and get as many patients as possible to this event. We do have patient aid. We will offer you assistance in travel and accommodations to get to the event. So please check that out. I will drop that website into the link. And the also super, super exciting news that just was announced yesterday officially is that we have released the first app dedicated to the IgA nephropathy community, and that came out yesterday. It's called the IgAN Plus app. Um, it is available in the Google Store and also in the Apple Store. I will drop that link into the chat. And I honestly, there's resources that we just want to make sure, as a patient myself, I struggled for a long time, over 20 years, really did not have a lot of support in navigating this disease. And now that I'm part of the foundation, that's something that I always think about and how we can help get stuff to people in hand. This May will make 20 years since the foundation was created. So Spark is going to be great. We hope you can make it. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lauren. And as things come up, feel free to drop stuff in the chat. There's also a poll open, like I said. Try to keep this interactive. Any issues or concerns, just drop it in the chat and I'll try to help you. Lauren, are you all set? You ready?
I think I am. Yeah.
Right.
So thank you so much, Gisela. I wish you could have seen my little, I gave a clap for Spark. And I also end my slides with Spark and the website on there as well. So if you miss it in the chat and it gets buried in the chat, we're going to end with it because Spark is just a wonderful, one of a kind event that I highly, highly recommend. that you make the time for. And like Gisela said, can be quite, the IgAN Foundation is wonderful, is very cost effective, regardless of patient assistance and needs. But tonight we're going to be talking about protein needs in IgAN, and protein is such a big topic within the kidney space. My name is Lauren. I am a kidney dietitian. I've been a renal dietitian since 2010. I am a certified specialist in renal nutrition. And if you could see my face right now, you would see I have much longer hair than I do in this picture. But, I've really always enjoyed working with people with kidney disease and chronic disease management, and especially with working with people with IgA. It's just, I love helping people do awesome things, and that is totally attainable. Originally, like most renal dietitians, I started in dialysis and have now transitioned into my own insurance-based virtual nutrition private practice specializing in kidney health. And I'm also the director at Book, which is a culinary nutrition website dedicated to kidney disease. And it is a plant-based site where you can get nutrition information and recipes. So tonight we are going to be going through the IgA nephropathy basics, really kind of relating towards why we're talking about specific things with protein needs, how to determine your protein needs, protein sources and portion sizes, how to create a kidney friendly meal, and go through questions and answers. And so we're going to try and be as we're going to use our time as best as possible. And I really want to get to those questions and answers because I know they are so important. And this is like a rare opportunity to get some of those answers to your questions directly. So with IgA nephropathy, it is an autoimmune related kidney disease, and so we think inflammation. It is often progressive, but as Gisela has already mentioned and is a living testament, it is not something that you can't thrive with, meaning many, many, many people thrive with IgA nephropathy. And typically, onset is less than 40 years old. And many times that's still young age and teens. And so when we think about protein needs, as we're going to be talking about, growth can be part of that, and very individualized, and why I'm hoping that this presentation will answer some of these questions for you specifically if you are trying to look for some direction. Although we won't be speaking on pediatrics specifically, we are going to be talking generalities. It's most common in Caucasian and Asian individuals, and the physical signs can be swelling in the hands or feet, blood and protein in our urine, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, sometimes upper respiratory issues, as well as GI issues. And so many times diet is one of those ways, or foods and lifestyle are some of those ways that we can really help to improve our health and well-being in between doctor's appointments, and where we can maintain control. So when I think about nutrition for IgA, our goal, and whether that's me as your dietitian or whether it's your nephrologist, we're both very aligned in trying to prevent further kidney damage, maintain good nutrition status, and lessen the risk for progression. Now, where your doctor uses medications and tests to evaluate and work towards these goals, a dietitian like myself, I use food and lifestyle and help to continue to allow you to have control. And so that eating pattern really looks very anti-inflammatory. We just talked about in the last slide, IgA is an autoimmune inflammatory type of situation. So we want our diet to be anti-inflammatory to fight that. We want it to be low in sodium to help regulate swelling and blood pressure issues. We want to make sure that our diet is low in cholesterol and high in fiber to help any blood cholesterol issues. And most importantly, we want our eating pattern to reflect our specific and personal needs. And especially when it comes to IgA, I see people who have protein in their urine and normal kidney function, and I see people who have protein in their urine and much more elevated and kidney damage and kidney disease stages 3, 4, 5s. And so individual nutrients sometimes need to be evaluated, but not always. And so you want to maintain this. It is personal. It's not one size fit all situation, so that you can not be more restrictive than is needed. Additional considerations are age. And I kind of touched on this or hinted at it. If you are someone or you're caring for someone who is still growing, overly restricting protein is not helpful for growth. We need protein for growth. So as we go through this presentation, if you're someone who is growing or caring for someone that is growing, you want to understand and learn these concepts. But when I talk about specific numbers for ways for you to evaluate your needs, you want to get those numbers from a healthcare professional like your doctor or a dietitian that knows your personal information and background to help to make sure that growth is a part of it. Sometimes I see on these Facebook pages and things, people making very well-intentioned recommendations to other people, but not understanding that growth is a big part of our nutrition status. Lab results also, we want to make sure that we're individualized. Many times medications that you may be prescribed are really looking to target protein in your urine and reduce protein in your urine, because that if you have less protein in your urine, you are less likely to have progression. You are putting less pressure on the kidneys, which is what we're trying to do. And so right sizing the portions of protein on our plate will help to also not overburden our kidneys. The other thing is health goals are another big part of it. If you are looking to, be active, if you are someone who is, wanting to have a family and your family planning, these are specific things that, you need to find guidance from your healthcare team, potentially more specifically, and definitely you want to make sure that you understand that your needs are individualized. So let's talk about protein. What is protein? We think of proteins and muscle, and it absolutely is. Our muscles are made of protein, but we also get protein in enzymes and bone and skin and hair and nails, and hemoglobin. These are all forms of protein in our body. We eat protein in plant and animal sources, and our body breaks that animal and plant protein that we eat down and uses it either for energy or to build these things in our body. And so our goal with protein is special in the sense that carbohydrate and fat are not made up with nitrogen. Nitrogen, and you may recognize from your labs as blood urea nitrogen, creatinine. These are all sources of protein. The BUN or blood urea nitrogen being related to the protein that we're eating, the creatinine related to the muscle mass. The more that we eat over our needs, the more we make our kidneys work to filter. So foods that contain protein, you can see these two lists here, both animal and plant-based, are sources that we get good, healthy proteins from. Many times in the past, we've heard of things like, oh, I need complete proteins. Plants are incomplete proteins. This really has been fairly debunked at this point. Yes, plant proteins may not be, they're as high in one specific amino acid as another plant protein, but when eaten throughout the day, our body uses all those amino acids, all those building blocks to build our body proteins in the right ways. We also might not think of things like peas, a vegetable, as having protein, but it does. Same with whole grains. We get protein in lots of different sources than we typically may think about when someone says, are you getting enough protein in your diet? So let's talk about this plant versus animal protein debate. Many times, or if you are well versed or and looking things up about kidney health, a plant-based protein really across the board has been recommended, or a plant forward eating pattern. And those types of eating patterns can look like fully vegan or no animal products. It can look more like the DASH diet, which if you want to Google that, it's DASH, dietary approaches to stop hypertension. That includes some animal proteins in it, but it is very plant forward. Same with the Mediterranean diet. These types of diets have been shown generally in kidney health to be kidney protective. When we look at this for IgA, we want to think, okay, IgA is much more specific to inflammation. We want to tap down that inflammation. What are the ways that we do that? And so animal proteins tend to be much higher in protein, kind of per weight or per serving than plant-based proteins. Animal proteins contain cholesterol, and if you have higher cholesterol, choosing the plant-based proteins that don't contain cholesterol and contain fiber can be good choices, whereas the animal proteins are lower in fiber, as well as animal proteins, once eaten, digested, broken down, put into our body, then go to produce acid. And our kidneys work as an acid-base balance. And so if we're sending a lot of acid into our body, that's making the kidneys now balance out that acid load in our blood to make it neutral. And so animal proteins are higher in acid. You may have heard the term PRAL, or potential renal acid load, whereas plant proteins are lower in that PRAL or potential acid load. They're not negative, they're more neutral tendencies, but they're definitely lower than animal protein. And the one thing that animal protein can have when we think about our cold fatty water fishes like salmon and tuna and sardines, or those are great sources of omegas. And omegas have been shown to be anti-inflammatory. And in some studies have actually, omega-3 supplementation has been shown for IgA to be very kidney protective. There are plant sources of omega-3s. However, those cold water fishes are very good sources. And so we want to look at both of these, because we're typically, everyone is eating for the most part, both of these. So how do I evaluate on this other side of the screen, how much protein am I supposed to get? I just want somebody to tell me, how much protein can I have in a day? If you are someone that's growing, unfortunately, I'm not going to tell you that answer tonight, because that requires a lot more information, and worst thing would be to be overly restrictive and reduce your ability to grow. And so that should come from a healthcare provider that knows you well. If you are someone that is done growing and maybe you have protein in your urine and you're spilling protein, but when you look at your labs, your kidney function is actually very good. Maybe your GFR is 70 or 80 or even 90. You're looking at a moderate protein intake in that stage 1 and 2 section there of 0.8 to 1. If you are someone who, again, has now seen kidney disease progress and are in stages 3 through 5 non-dialysis, this is more of the low protein section, and you're looking for you can see that 0.55 to 0.6. I traditionally kind of go with that 0.6. It's such a narrow window. It's easier just to stick to 1 there. As well as if you're someone who may be more nutritionally at risk, and that looks like someone who may have a poor appetite and unintentional weight loss, or who has diabetes, then you're going to be a little bit more liberalized at 0.6 to 0.8. If you're on dialysis, our goal, our core goal of what we're trying to do to preserve function is no longer there. Dialysis is doing the work of the kidneys for you, and it takes protein. And so instead, our mindset around intake goes to a much higher protein intake, and then transplant kind of goes full circle back into that moderate intake. The reason why these protein numbers are much smaller than what we're used to is the standard American diet. Most people have about 1.3 grams of protein per kilogram body weight per day. So if you're someone who is new to all of this information and you are sitting at stages 3 through 5, that is you should be halving your protein based on if you eat what the standard American diet is. And that's a very big change. And that's very hard to sustain and still eat enough without extra help. And so small sustained changes are always recommended and are just fine. It's long-term, slow, sustainable changes versus rash, big changes that you give up on that can be, lead to overwhelm and the heck with it. So let's look at what portions of sizes of protein actually are so that we can evaluate how much am I eating. When it comes to the plant-based proteins, that is my sports references here in the golf ball, the ping pong ball, and the half of the baseball. Those portions are, you can tell, much smaller in both size and grams of protein than the checkbook, and the deck of cards. So plant-based proteins by weight and by typical portion size are much smaller than or have less protein than animal sources. Animal sources, however, that checkbook for fish, you should really think about that as like flounder, the thin fish is supposed to be a checkbook in size and height. Think about how small a checkbook, the height is on that. That is what 3 ounces of fish looks like, and is about 18 to 25 grams of protein. Whereas 3 ounces of meat, chicken, pork, beef, I would say your tuna and salmon fillets that are the size of height and width of a deck of cards, that's about 3 ounces and is 20 to 25 grams of protein. So that's much bigger. And if you are eating a half cup of tofu on your plate, that's actually quite filling, right? Whereas if you were to only eat an ounce and a half of meat or half of that deck of cards, which is the same amount of protein, that would be very unsatisfying. You would be very hungry. And so these plant-based proteins being higher in fiber, some of them lower in protein, can help really to balance out your plate so that you're full and not overloading with protein. Now, I don't know about you, but when I put out a portion of nuts, I don't get my golf ball out and look, oh, is that a fourth cup of nuts? And so what I want to do on the other side is show you what are the typical portion sizes that we're eating, and and talk through like how are some of these ways to make these choices more kidney friendly, but also reasonable and sustainable.
Hey Lauren, can you go back one slide? I just because it was a real time. I just got a text message from someone.
Yeah.
It is like kind of funny, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of younger people that don't know what a checkbook looks like. So if I
Oh,
said a if I
oh,
said
that's
a Hershey
hilarious. Yes,
bar,
you're totally right.
if I said like a Hershey bar or something, not with almonds, like
Yes,
your
yes, right.
basic.
That is a great, oh, sorry, I advanced the slide.
No,
That is a
no,
great
no,
example. And Hershey bar is good and much more up to date. You're
but
totally
more. It's so fun to look at, but then we'll just replace it with an image of a fish. Okay, I just wanted to
yeah.
interrupt on that. Thought it was funny.
No, but I'm gonna update that in the next time I do something like this because you're totally right. Um, and to be honest, like it's flounder that is like one of the only ones that you're gonna find fish that thin, right?
Yeah.
So one kind of pro tip before I move on from the slide, actually, since Giselle, you brought up that great point, one kind of pro tip when it comes to the estimating of portion sizes, because lots of research shows that everyone, including dietitians, are very bad at eyeballing portion sizes, is you can just go in and get a deck of cards and leave it on the kitchen table. And as you're eating, you can have it there and look, okay, is this more or less than 3 ounces? So that's one of those easy ways. No, I wouldn't recommend as much the Hershey bar recommendation, because if it was on my kitchen table, I'd end up eating it. But the deck of cards might work a little bit better. So let's look at these typical portion size. So you can see up on the top right, I've kept my deck of cards and my checkbook or Hershey bar. And now let's look at typical portion sizes of foods that we get at the grocery store or out to eat. In full disclosure, I Googled typical sizes of chicken breast, salmon, hamburger, things like that. I did not mean to try and pick on solely animal proteins. I was also going to try and make that plant protein portion evident as well. I wasn't able to find that with plant-based proteins, but when you Google, grocery store chicken breast, how much does it weigh or how much protein? There are many sites, usually aimed at weight loss, that try and help people with these portion sizes. And so I knew this information, but typically many people that I work with are just floored to hear and see that the grocery store chicken breast is actually not 3 ounces. It's actually closer to 6 to 8 ounces and is about 52 plus grams of protein that you're getting. So if you sit down to a grilled chicken breast and salad, which would be a very healthy option, you may be getting way more protein than you need. Same with, you can see the salmon is 28 to 40 grams. The hamburger is kind of all over the place because depending on where you're getting your hamburger from, how thin the patty is, how big it is, what I was able to find online was in the 21 to 37 grams of protein, including the bun. And the other thing that's all over the place are protein drinks, whether they're plant-based protein drinks like pea protein, or whether they're whey-based or whatever. You can get protein drinks that have really as little as 8 grams of protein and much higher grams, but I just chose to go with a more of an average of that 20 to 40 grams of protein that you might not quite realize you're getting so much more than you already need. So sometimes simple changes towards eating just whole foods and cutting out some of the additional protein that you might be having post workout, exchanging that protein drink of 40 grams of protein for something more like half a banana and 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, or apple slices and peanut butter, something like that, where you're getting some protein to replace and a little bit of carbohydrate from the natural fruit, but not overdoing that protein allowance, is a nice way to continue to work towards your own personal health goals, but not overdo your protein for the day. So let's look at what like that actually means on a plate. I like my balanced plate here comes down to 50% veggies and fruit, quarter protein, a quarter whole grains, oils sparingly, because oils, a little goes a long way with oils, and then obviously predominantly water. I really like this diagram because it's a way to be able to gauge, does my plate look like this? Most of the time when I work with people, I use this as a guide because it's really easy to say, okay, half the plate veggies, quarter protein, quarter whole grains. But then when you plate yourself, think about what you ate for dinner if you had dinner before this session. How much really did those vegetables take up on your plate? Was it really a half, or was it maybe a quarter or less? How much did the protein take up? It's actually very hard because the standard American diet is so protein forward, that it can be a big change to move towards this. Usually when I work with people, the next question I get after, well, okay, I see, what does that look like? Show me meals that looks like. And and I'm going to show you in these next couple slides what a balanced plate actually looks like in different meals. But I really want to highlight for a second, because with this balanced plate, because when we talk about kidney health and we talk about IgA, it becomes somewhat of our identifier and a feeling of like, this is now my restrictive diet. But actually, this plate is the same my plate that is recommended for general health. It's the same plate that's recommended for diabetic health, for weight management, for anti-inflammatory, for reducing cancer risk. It is more a reflection of where our standard American diet starts us out as, of why we feel so restricted, than it is on this diet is so restrictive. And so you can make big strides without having to restart over or to feel like there's nothing left to eat. And that is one thing that I really hope that you take that approach in this presentation, because there are lots of options you can eat. So let's go through those. So here for breakfast, we've got 3 recommendations or ideas, and you'll notice that they are all what I would consider in the moderate protein amount. I on purpose chose plant-based proteins, as well as either a tofu or you could use an egg scramble there. But you'll notice all three of these include, we've got in the oatmeal, we've got the bigger source of whole grain. It's got more than just plain oatmeal. It has the ground flax in it, and the walnuts, and the plant milk, and the berries that are adding plant-based protein, healthy fat, omega-3s, and berries with good fiber and antioxidants and very anti-inflammatory. And so plain old oatmeal becomes this super powerhouse of a meal. And even if you're including an egg or two in a scramble, by putting a cup of onions and peppers and my favorite little bits of broccoli, I love broccoli in everything throughout the day. That anti-inflammatory low or negative potential renal acid load offsets those eggs and really becomes very kidney protective. And so each of these meals are very based in that idea of half of my plate being vegetables and fruit, a quarter being protein, a quarter being whole grains. And you're still getting 12 grams of protein in this meal, in these meals, 12 to 15 with that eggs. So then I wanted to pull out some lunch and some obvious ones here. So these all continue to follow that half veggies, quarter protein, quarter whole grains. And you can see on the left side, we've got quinoa salad and chickpeas being that protein source in that salad, but it's also a really great fiber source and provides 15 grams of protein. In our hummus wrap, 3 tablespoons of hummus and all those veggies. It's the hummus and the wrap being the source of protein. And depending on what type of wrap you're using, and if that is, you know, an almond flour based, if you're following a gluten-free diet, if it is whole wheat, or, you know, you're getting a fair amount of protein from that wrap, and it will very much vary widely based on the wrap of your choice. And then lastly, you know, tuna salad. If you're using 3 ounces of tuna, which is fairly similar to almost a can, depending on what type, you know, how big your can is and all that kind of stuff. 2 tablespoons of onion and celery, and then 2 tablespoons of mayo mixed. That's 25 grams of protein. That tuna salad is going to be a source of omegas. It's not going to be super high in fiber, but you are still getting about a quarter of a cup there of the veggies. And I would just recommend put it over greens. And now you've made that base of your half cup or your half plate veggies to really balance that out well. And when we look at dinner, we're looking at I did a veggie and a animal protein based. In the broccoli tofu stir fry, you're getting 15 grams of protein, mostly coming from the tofu and from the rice, because rice does have protein, some protein in it. And in the salmon, you're getting the protein from the salmon primarily and the brown rice as well. And so these can be, again, you've got that whole cup of asparagus that can fill your plate, the quarter or deck card size of salmon, and the 2/3 cup brown rice. And so these are some options of what that balanced plate looks like. Hopefully you can identify and some of these and say, okay, I could see myself eating some of that. That doesn't seem too hard or too foreign or too different than what I'm already doing, and trying to build from there. Ultimately, protein is just one piece in our IgA nutrition type of overall mindset. And really, when I think nutrition, I think food and lifestyle. If you're focusing on building your eating pattern around fruits and vegetables and you're being active to help with blood pressure and your and mental side and physical side, monitoring your blood pressure and going to your checkups as needed and as recommended, and not partaking in things like smoking that can be significant sources of pressure on our kidneys, we can have this overall picture, and protein is just one element in that, in how you thrive. So in summary, when it comes to IgA nutrition and protein, you want to eat as much as you need and not more. You want to make food choices based on your situation, your labs, whether you are growing or not, and not necessarily based on something you read online uh, or from somebody that might not know the whole picture. Generally, choosing plant-based proteins more often than animal proteins are a great way to be anti-inflammatory, higher in fiber, lower in protein, and lower in cholesterol, and be more kidney protective. You don't want to forget about omega-3s. And whether that looks like salmon or tuna or sardines or walnuts or chia seeds or hemp seeds, they are a good anti-inflammatory part of our diet that oftentimes go with proteins. And so we don't want to forget about them. Making healthy choices most of the time is the goal. One meal, one holiday is not going to break all of your good effort and not going to hurt you. It's where it's sustainability and consistency that's the most important. And especially with IgA nephropathy, where you have, depending on how, you've got lots of awesome things going on, you want to seek help from a professional that knows your personal needs. You may not check the boxes of many of the other type of risk factors related to generalized chronic kidney disease. And so you may not need as restrictive of situations. And it really is very personal. I really want to thank the IgAN Foundation for having me and Gisela for hosting me. Um, my name is Lauren again. I wish you could see me. I am an insurance-based renal dietitian at Happy Health Nutrition and director at Cute Book. And I cannot say enough about how wonderful Spark is. And that really, if you have not been, you should absolutely take the time to go and learn and enjoy and really find the support that you need. So Gisela, I think
Okay.
from here do you want me to leave this here or do you want me to unshare
Uh,
since you can't see me?
can't see you. I know. I don't know why. We're not in retrograde yet, but it's because that's just how things go, right? But we just
Right.
gotta
No, it's
you
totally
get what you get and you don't get upset. We just keep moving forward. We're still doing a good job here. Thank you so much. And I'm someone that has struggled with balancing my nutrition throughout my 30 years of being diagnosed with IgA nephropathy. And I consider myself very privileged. I have access. I have a good job. I have good health insurance, and I
yeah.
and I know that eating healthy can sometimes feel expensive, but I
Mhm.
love that you put some really basic keys out there, because I don't want people to feel like that's a barrier to eating healthy, right? You can
Absolutely.
always make a good choice
Mhm.
um, with what you have access to. And then, many times during your journey, what you're allowed to eat will change based off
That's
of your
right.
labs. And I can
Yeah.
tell you there was one point where I was eating things and people were like, "Don't you have bad kidneys?" And I was like, "This is the only thing I can eat right now." And
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, yes, I'm eating this buttered roll because it's the only thing I can get down because, if you're experiencing nausea, if you're experiencing other things, uh, so yeah, I mean, like, I think it's really important. You emphasized it. We always try to emphasize it. You need to eat to your labs. You need to eat based
Mhm,
off of how you feel. It's going to make you feel
mhm.
better. And, for some of us, sometimes those periods in between when you're going to see your regular nephrologist, if you're only seeing your nephrologist every 6 months, that might not be enough. So,
Right.
definitely if you need additional help sort of navigating, I dropped a link to our website. We do have resources. We also did develop a cookbook.
Mhm.
It's been out for 2 years now.
2 years? Yeah.
And we definitely want to make sure that if you don't have the cookbook and you would like to get it, we do also offer assistance, to get the cookbook in the hands of the people who want it and need it.
Mhm.
So I'll drop that into the chat. I'll also send a recap email with a bunch of links because we covered a lot of stuff
Yes, we did.
in this webinar. And it's also really hard to do webinars. Lauren's a social person. I'm a social person. You got to like talk to the screen. You're wondering if people are listening. Are people eating like popcorn while they're watching this? I don't know what's happening. I feel really weird because I'm the only face on this thing.
Yeah,
But we
exactly.
did get a couple of questions. I want to be mindful of people's time. Um, we have one here, Lauren. Can
Mhm.
protein loss be controlled with diet alone and being able to avoid the need for medication?
So that's a great question. I will always say that I recommend people take the medications their doctors prescribe as prescribed. Um, I have definitely seen changes in urine protein through diet changes. So that can look many different ways. Sometimes people are prescribed a medicine and we do diet change at the same time and see a drop. And sometimes people, see a drop and maybe their doctor hasn't necessarily yet put them or they're not currently on something specifically related trying to navigate urine protein. So absolutely diet can help as well as medication. They're not exclusive.
Yeah, it's just everyone. Listen, if we knew the secret sauce, I say this all the time. We have Bonnie on the call tonight too, and I've probably met over. I mean, I probably met like over 500 patients at this point, but I haven't met one other person that is exactly like me in their journey and what medicine they're
Right.
taking and what they're allowed to do. And
Yeah.
um, it actually leads into it's a good segue to our next question is, uh, I'm I'm also very low iron and anemic, so I need to eat some animal protein to help me balance out my needs.
Mhm.
Any tips you have found to help patients balance out? And I know you mentioned something like a 70-30 or, finding out something
Yeah.
for you, but any other tips?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is iron in plant sources as well. If you pair iron with vitamin C, so if you're having a chicken salad, like grilled chicken pieces with spinach and strawberry salad, the vitamin C in the strawberries and spinach are a great way, and the iron I'm sorry, the spinach and in the iron and the chicken are a great way with that vitamin C in the strawberries to help it be absorbed better. And so you'll get enough iron even when you right size the portion of protein for sure. The other piece of that is you want all the other vitamins that go together to build a red blood cell. And so having a varied diet in color will help to ensure you get enough of those extra vitamins too.
Yeah, vitamin C. That's another thing I remember post transplant. I was very low in iron and it does take a long time if you're taking supplements for that to
It does.
to
It
that
takes
to
about 3 weeks to grow a red blood cell, so it takes a
it takes
while
a
to
long
see
time.
some
But
change.
eating and then I know like eating the fruit versus like a juice is better, right? Am I saying that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Because when we juice, we're taking out the fiber, the pulp, which is the good stuff for us. And you just think about if you've ever seen fresh squeezed juice, how many oranges does it take to fill that glass of fresh squeezed orange juice, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta eat the meat of the fruit.
Yeah.
That's what you call it, right? The meat of the fruit. I don't know.
That's what
I
I call it.
it
Yeah.
sounds weird.
Yeah.
Um, Protein shake. You know, I see this come up a lot.
Hmm.
Whenever we do any sort of like event where people are, you know, we have people are, you know, trying to take control of their bodies in other ways that they can. They're working out, they're trying to supplement
Hmm.
protein shakes. You know, are there some tips here? We have a question here. What protein shake is okay for kidney patients and what ingredient should I look for?
Yeah. So, I the tough part with protein shakes is it really comes down to following your needs, and that's where it's kind of hard to like give you give anyone a recommendation without hearing what they currently eat throughout the day and knowing how much they can have in the day. But what I would say is you can get enough protein from that example in the smoothie. What my smoothie example for breakfast, it had 12 grams of protein. That's actually a fair amount of protein for what you need post workout. Even though you may read other things. I mean, you think about, and if anyone is a tennis watcher, Coco Gauff, when she's on the sideline on a tennis match, she's eating fruit. She's not downing other things. And yes, I'm sure she has protein post a tennis match, but the point being, you can get it out of Whole Foods. You don't have to necessarily get it from a powder or a mix.
Thank you. Yeah, great question. Uh, can what do you know the sort of correlation between like and like hair loss and protein? We have a question from Bonnie actually. Like, you know, she thinks she's around 50 grams daily. Will that help? Do you know if it'll help hair growth?
So when it comes to hair growth, and protein needs, I'm not as nearly as well versed on hair growth. It's from That's Bonnie who's asking me that.
Yeah, we could put a pin in it and we can
I
go
was gonna
find
say,
out.
why
And
don't I put a pin on that one? Because that one's not one I get very often,
this is not a test. This
and I
is
can let you know, Bonnie, because that one's different.
no, it's a, you know, I know that depending, you know, a lot of medication, stress impact your
Right,
hair. I'm post
absolutely.
transplant. I'm taking biotin, but also like, you know, how my
Right,
body absorbs things is just different based off of other
right.
things, right? And that's, you
And
know,
the
different
nice thing
medications
about
that people are on also impacts how they're able to absorb nutrients.
Right, absolutely. And biotin is a great vitamin for that, and does overlap in the kidney space there. That's not related to medication, like especially with hair loss, right? Like sometimes we can't. It's a uphill battle where we are fighting when it's a medication interaction.
Yeah. Is it still recommended to eat a low sodium diet even in stage one and or sodium numbers are normal, whatever?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. That's a great question. So yes, so typically the standard American diet, we have about 37 to 4,000 milligrams of sodium in a day, and we only need, or the daily value is 2,300 milligrams. So the standard American diet is getting almost double of what we need in a day for salt. Um, and so your sodium number on your labs is not necessarily directly related to how much you eat in the day of salt. It is more tied to hydration. And so you're not going to see a high sodium because you eat too much salt on your labs. You will typically see a high sodium level on your labs because you're dehydrated.
Mhm.
Part of that can be because you didn't drink enough and you ate too much salt. But so we can't go on the sodium labs to say I eat too much sodium. So it is definitely recommended, even if you follow a no added salt diet, um, or just try and do small things like when you're eating at home or making things at home, just buy no added salt canned broths and uh, products, tomato sauces, and things like that. because we don't necessarily realize that we're even getting all that extra salt.
Mhm.
And reading food labels, and just, if you like two options, choose the lesser of salt that you still like. You might be surprised that it's those simple things add up over the day.
Yeah, and also, like, I will say, like, sometimes you need my sodium runs low, and,
Yeah.
like, a joke is, at one point, my doctor was like, "Have a couple of pickles, have some, like, olives." I was like, "Who are you? Get out of here."
Yeah,
Um,
right.
after going, because you're as you go through your journey, what you're allowed to do will change, and after coming off
Yeah.
of a very low sodium diet, all of a sudden, I was able to, like I was
Yeah.
okay, and then it was like, everything's tasted salty, so it is,
Everything tastes salty.
not adding
Exactly.
salt to things is a great I think it's like a habit a lot of people have before they even try food. Uh,
Yes.
all right, couple of more, and then we'll try to get these answered. I'd like some quick grab and go protein options. My days are
Mm.
unpredictable. To be honest, I often have to take breakfast with me to work.
Okay, so that oatmeal recipe that I had on the earlier slide, if you
Hmm.
want to watch the replay and pause it there, you can actually put that oatmeal together in a mason jar and bring that grab and go to work, especially if you're talking easy for work. The other thing would be for work, again, aligning with those slides, is instead of the egg scramble, hard boil an egg, bring an apple, and do it that way. Those are some quick, easy options. I really personally, especially when it comes to work and busyness and schedules, I do a few of those things on Sunday nights so that it's easy and done for me when I am low on time. So I will make those little oatmeals that I was just talking about. I'll make 3 of them for the week, and that helps. And I will do things like I will boil quinoa or brown rice and have quick, easy additions. Or sometimes for my family, I will grill a couple chicken breasts for them, because if you're caregiving for somebody else and you're trying to follow something different, sometimes reducing the burden for the other people you're caring for allows you to have the time you need to cook or to eat to take care of yourself. And that's just as important.
Yeah, no, that's a great note. Um, I love the hard-boiled egg because you can make those like in a
Oh,
couple of
yeah.
batches. I also would keep like just a tip. I'm speaking from experience. What I found easy because we're all
Yeah.
so busy for anything is like keep a jar of almond butter or peanut butter in the
Uh-huh.
office. Uh,
Oh.
and as long as you're able to trust yourself with your
Right.
what you're serving. But
Yeah.
honestly, actually this morning I keep some small pitas. I bring
Yeah.
them in. I get from Whole Foods, keep them in my desk at work, something that I'm not too worried about, and then some peanut butter, and sometimes that's what I'll have in the morning. It's like very easy, and at least I'm great. If you don't have anything, right, that's the problem. Then you'll reach for whatever's available and try to have some healthy options around.
Absolutely.
Um, how do you feel? How do you feel about gluten and lactose um,
Mm.
in relation to considered inflammatory food?
I think I could give a whole other
We,
lecture
yeah.
on
Maybe
gluten
we'll
and
do a part
lactose.
two when we
Yeah,
focus on
exactly.
the gluten-free.
Yeah, on the gluten-free diet. What I will say is that there definitely has been shown to be a higher incidence of celiac gene test for people with IgA nephropathy. I very much feel strongly that you know your body better than any practitioner. And if something doesn't feel good, if you feel inflamed from it, if you're having reactions to it, intolerances to it, there are other choices that you can usually make that do not restrict your nutritional status. Meaning, gluten is a great option, or a great, like, you can have a gluten, brown rice is just fine, and that's gluten free, right? So you
Hmm.
can make these swaps, and you do it as much as you can. And, if you're not perfect, that's okay too,
Yeah.
right?
This next one is super dear to my heart.
Uh-huh.
My doctor recommended I watch my phosphorus, which is literally in everything. So
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah.
It,
Again,
it,
Oh, another lecture we can totally do.
Yeah.
Um,
Phosphorus. Yeah, I think we should do something with gluten and and IgAN, and maybe we'll do something with phosphorus. It says phosphorus and potassium uh
yeah.
intake, which it's hard because a lot of healthy things, right? You're trying to eat
Mhm,
healthier.
mhm,
But I think it goes back to like being able to know what that measurement is for you
mhm.
and relating it to your labs, right? I mean, so the
Yeah.
question is, my doctor recommended I watch my phosphorus and potassium intake. I find
Mhm.
this very hard to figure out. D, I see you. I have been there. It is very hard to figure out.
One
Um,
one thing I will say, actually bringing it back to this protein discussion, most protein sources are also naturally higher in phosphorus and potassium. And if you right size your protein portions, you're naturally taking some of that off of your plate without having to go crazy about how much protein can I have? Does this have phosphorus? How many milligrams does that vegetable have of potassium? Because that is a big animal protein specifically is a big phosphorus and potassium load that we don't often talk about. So, and then when it comes to phosphorus, read your food labels. The biggest bang for your buck is to avoid foods that have added phosphorus in them. We absorb them significantly more than vegetable and even animal forms of phosphorus. But
yeah.
definitely parts 2 and 3 and 4 and 5.
Yeah, wait, no, I mean, it is we did do some we did have some stuff about like how to read a nutritional label that
Mhm.
we'll be posting about, but it is hard. You're not alone, and it's tough, and I think don't be so hard on yourself is what I'm saying as a patient. Like I think if you get
Absolutely.
to that 70% of the time you're being super conscious of what you're trying to eat, like
Mhm.
the way I think what takes a long time for people to realize the way you eat and how it shows up in your labs and how that relates, like
Mhm.
it's not like a 1, 2, 3 thing. And
Yeah.
it takes a while to figure out. But
It
you know how you
absolutely
feel.
does.
That is important.
Yeah.
Um, Cindy, my friend, yeah, potassium and protein. Eating carbs. I ate a lot of carbs when I was just that's all I could eat. Because I mean, sometimes during your journey,
Mhm.
there's a
Yeah.
sim if as long as you're eating, that's great. Sometimes I know people have to be put on what's that supplement? Uh, there's like a supplement shake. Sometimes you get
Yeah. So like Nepro.
yeah, one of the, you want to make sure you're getting you're being able to like get some sort of nutrients in. So it is a
Yeah.
hard, can't think of the
Yeah.
name
And
of it.
Nepro is really high in protein. It's also a good calorie source. But I would say um only do that if a healthcare provider
Yeah.
has told you to do that. You can get those calories in through things like coconut milk. Like that smoothie was based in coconut milk. That smoothie actually had quite a bit of calories in it. You can get it through Whole Foods, like Whole Foods you eat, not Whole Foods the store. Definitely for sure if you look at it, so you follow your health practitioner.
Yeah. The next one, I know this comes up a lot, but just alcohol, like in
Yeah.
terms of, what's something that's not so bad in terms of, I mean, and I think you mentioned this a couple of times, like a lot of the recommendations are things that pretty much anyone should follow, right? Like,
Right.
regardless of, it's just a healthier diet. But when we talk about alcohol drinking, what's something that's not so bad, specifically calling out wine?
Yeah. Yeah. So, any healthcare provider is going to say, if you don't drink alcohol, you shouldn't start, right? Um, but if you're in protein, we don't worry about protein and wine. Um, Really, we look at the potential for alcohol can increase blood pressure. Um, and depending on any medications, if there's negative medication interactions, if you're taking a medication that says do not drink and consume this, that is another risk factor. But other than that, typically moderation is fine. But always when in doubt, alcohol and interactions typically as a doctor or pharmacist question, because that's really the focus more than nutrition status. If you're looking for what's the lowest phosphorus content in wine question. Maybe we can save that for part 3 or 4 when we do that talk.
Maybe we can do a wine tasting with
Yeah,
low phosphorus wines.
exactly. Spark
No,
effect.
great questions. Thank you everyone for being engaged. Lots of good questions here. Lauren, thank you. I'm sorry we can't see your face. I think I'm gonna send your headshot out in this recap email
Oh,
so
well,
that
that's very
everyone can
nice of you.
see.
I know it must feel very awkward for you because I feel like I'm interacting with you. So, but you must not feel like you can just see the blank screen. So I
This is
appreciate you, Gisela. I appreciate the IgAN Foundation. If you all are watching this recorded or watching this live and this is your first event, you absolutely need to go to IgAN.org, download that app. This is the support network that you need for sure.
yes. And I will be sending this recording probably out by end of week with some additional resources that we kind of mentioned here. I really hope that all of you on here do register for Spark. We will have like a live demo cooking. Uh,
Yeah.
that's fun. It's a great opportunity to really network and be amongst your peers. Can't talk about it enough. Definitely want to make sure people are aware of that. Also, Lauren is working with us to help get more recipes in the app that launched yesterday. So the IgAN Plus app, really, it's for members only. It's free to become a member of the foundation, but we're just creating a little bit more of a bespoke community um, of IgAN patients and caregivers where we can just have more engaging conversations and also a plethora of resources. And there is something in there to help you track your labs. There's a nutrient search in there, so please check that out if you have it. My name is Gisela. Again, if you have any questions, please respond to that email that goes out with the recap. We're happy to help. I know Lauren is always happy to help, and we hope you all have a blessed evening. And thank you again for taking time to join us.
Thank you guys.
Take care.